and a very good day or good evening, depending on when you are listening to this. This is indeed episode 1, the very first episode of a Sky of the Universe podcast. One of hopefully many episodes of podcasts to come in this series, which will hopefully span the lifetime of my channel, Sky of the Universe, on YouTube. And this is being recorded on Wednesday, May the 14th, 2025. It's 10:55 p.m. Eastern Canadian time, and we're right now sitting by the beautiful shores of the St. Lawrence River in the Verdun sector of southwest Montreal. And it's a very beautiful night right now. It's about, I'd say, 22 degrees Celsius, 72 degrees Fahrenheit, a bit of clouds. And indeed, as I mentioned, this is episode 1 of very hopefully exciting new idea for my channel. Something that's going to serve to complement my channel, something that's going to be on the side, one of many tools hopefully I'm going to come up with in my toolbox to help make my channel better for you, the viewer. And of course, I did make sort of an introductory episode a few months ago talking about the idea, the premise of making a podcast series. But this episode is going to be more detailed. And even though I named the first episode 1, it was more or less an introductory episode. This one is officially the first episode of a Sky of the Universe podcast. And I'll just start by saying, first of all, thank you everyone for your support. Thank you to all my subscribers and viewers. And as always, if you haven't subscribed, if you're listening to this or you watch my videos and you haven't subscribed, definitely hit the subscribe button. It's worth it. If you don't want to be intruded by notifications, you can even put the notification bell, I believe, to mute. And I'll talk a bit more about my channel later on in the episode. Just want to sort of right now introduce you to what this whole idea of a podcast is. So I had the idea of starting a podcast probably about 6 months to a year ago. And I thought, why not have some kind of audio type space to do talking and analyzing things, and something, of course, that will fit the theme of my channel. It is part of my channel, a place where I can maybe talk a bit deeper about videos that I make, analyze certain videos, talk about how videos were made, give a little bit of extra details on certain videos, but also talk about, stories that are important to me, whether it's news stories or, talking about transit or you name it, sort of a place to discuss things. And that's what I want this podcast to be about. It's going to be mostly audio, just like this is right now that you're listening to. I'll probably put a background picture usually, or background picture, so it's sort of a little bit more stimulating if you're maybe just sitting there and looking at a blank screen. I know some people like to do that. They just want to hear the audio. And if you want a little bit of, I guess, more stimulus, I'll put a couple of pictures up throughout each episode related to my channel or videos that you can sort of see changing every few minutes or so. But again, this is going to be mostly audio, and it's going to serve as a tool for my channel to complement my videos for my YouTube channel, which is, of course, Sky of the Universe. As for the name of the podcast, they say, when you're writing a book, when you're writing a song, whatever, they say the title is sometimes the hardest part to come up with. So I think, though, a Sky of the Universe podcast pretty much puts everything together into what it really is. It's a podcast related to Sky of the Universe, my channel, my brand, if you want to call it that. And anyways, I do want to eventually also have guests on my podcast. I want to talk to people. I want to talk to you if you're interested in talking. I know I put the idea out there in certain communities, whether it's a transit community or whatnot, which I'll talk about in a moment here, the different aspects of my channel, different communities that my channel is made of, which is a universe of different communities and themes. And I put the idea out there, and indeed there are some that are interested in doing some audio interviews. Whether it's, for example, a gentleman named Skinfleck, that's his YouTube name. He's working on a Roblox game. Roblox is It's a gaming platform where you can design different types of games. He's working on a transit game right now, specifically the Montreal Metro, yellow line of the Montreal Metro. I also had some others out there that were interested in, talking about different things. So, that's what I want this to be about. I want it to be not just me all the time, but also, different, I guess you could say, characters or, viewers or fellow YouTubers that want to talk on the podcast. So the invitation is out there. If you're interested, leave a comment. You can email me skyoftheuniverse8608@gmail.com. So yeah, this podcast, like I said, hopefully it's going to last as long as my channel does, and it's probably going to evolve over time, just like anything else. But I do want to keep it simple. I want it to stay simple, but I want it to be something that's enjoyable and interesting to you, the listener, the viewer, the friend. So yeah, that's pretty much what this is going to be about. This is what Sky of the Universe podcast is going to be about. So how often am I going to put episodes up? How often am I going to record episodes? That I'm not sure of. At first, I'm going to try to do at least 1 or 2 episodes a month, maybe once every couple of weeks. I've tried in my channel to make a set schedule of certain things, whether it's, doing walking videos on one day and doing live streams on another day. It's just I cannot keep a certain schedule. I've tried doing that. My channel is very random, has random upload times for videos. It's, random types of videos. So to actually commit to a fixed schedule of anything is something I tend to have a hard time with in terms of my channel. So this is probably not going to be any different, but I will, like I said, at least to start with, do 1 to 2 episodes a month, roughly. That's just an estimate. I'm using a Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra to do these recordings. Same device I'm using to record my videos 99% of the time. Same device as you probably saw in my behind the scenes video of editing. I do most of my stuff on the smartphone. I do have a laptop as well that I use to do, more advanced editing, rarely. Let's try to maybe get into that a bit more as well. I want to eventually try to get a DSLR camera, get into photography, get into better quality videos. There's a lot to, look forward to going forward. Eventually getting a proper drone, getting maybe a type of GoPro action camera. All these little things that probably make my channel better, I do want to eventually embrace. So anyways, that's what it's going to be about. This podcast is going to be about talking about those things and talking about, the news of the day and themes and whatnot. And, we'll see if eventually I move to a different type of device for recording. Maybe I'll put some, invest in a microphone or something and get better quality sound. Most of my episodes are going to be in quiet environments such as this one. You probably do hear a bit of background noise, which is kind of half on purpose. It'd be nice to have maybe some nature, some birds chirping in the background. You're probably just hearing the hum of the city more or less right now in the background. But anyways, so that's pretty much it for what my podcast is going to be about. And I'd figured now for this part of the episode, I talk about my channel a bit. If you're not familiar with my channel, what it's about, how I started it, when I started it, and whatnot. So first of all, my name is Patrick. I do live in Montreal, Canada, and I started my channel in December of 2015. So December 2015 is when I started my YouTube channel. And the reason I started my channel is actually pretty interesting. I was watching, I don't know what it was. I think I was just watching YouTube. Of course, I've watched YouTube a lot longer than I've had my channel. And I think I was watching some random videos on the Montreal Metro. I don't remember if it just happened to pop up. I don't remember if I was searching for videos of the Montreal Metro, but I was just going through YouTube videos. And then suddenly I saw a video at the Metro in Montreal here, and I noticed the guy was talking while he was filming a Metro ride. And His name is Alton McFall, Retro Old School. So you may or may not hear of him. Retro Old School, aka Alton McFall. He's a Montreal YouTuber. Been doing this longer than me. Basically, I went through his videos on his channel, and I noticed he did walking videos and did, different types of videos. And I saw, he's just basically walking around talking and filming metro rides, trains, and whatnot. And I figured, you know what? Hey, maybe this is something I could try doing. Maybe this is something I can do to, get some exercise and maybe, walk around and, just share the world through my eyes. So I did start. And if you go to my very first videos on my channel, they're very basic videos. You'll see they're just me walking around, filming random train cars, train wagons going by, little walks here and there. Very basic videos. I think I can't remember what I had at the time. The very first phone that I was using on my channel was definitely a Samsung Galaxy, I believe. With the exception of once, I think I had an LG phone. With the exception of that, the whole life of my channel has been Samsung Galaxy phones, Samsung Galaxy series. But anyways, so I decided, why not start doing that? And as time evolved, I eventually got into it more and more, and I eventually met Alton. And I remember when I met Alton for the first time, he said to me, I actually met him to buy some, I think it was art or something he did, or some magazine ads that he likes to sell, of course, to this day. If you know Retro Old School, he loves the magazine ads, the vintage magazine ads and whatnot. Great guy. And so I met him, and he told me, look, I feel like you're sort of copying me a bit. And he says, I like what you do and I like your channel, but I feel like you're sort of copying me a bit. And I said to him, no, it's not. I don't think we should look at it that way. I think it's more of me, you're inspiring people like me to sort of do our own thing with our own touch. And he agreed, and he said, yeah, for sure, that's something that he appreciated, that it wasn't just me, but there's others out there I think he influenced to start a channel as well, and he appreciated that once we had the discussion about that. So but after that discussion, I thought, okay, you know what, he is right in a certain extent. I want to do my own thing as well. I don't want to do exactly like Alton does or anyone else. By the way, I should point out that this is just one influence that I had, one sort of, I guess you could say, inspiration to start a channel. But then I decided, okay, I'm not just going to film out walking videos, elevators. I'm going to start to, evolve my channel into other types of themes, And my first channel name that I had was actually very simple. It was Patransit, or Patransit Plus. It was a little play on my name, Patrick. And I spelt it Patransit, Patransit, and I think I put a plus symbol. And then I think after a year or two, I decided, I'm going to rebrand this, because I don't want my channel only to be about transit. Although even to this day, most of my videos on my channel are transit related. But with that said, I do have other types of videos on my channel, as you probably know by now. So anyways, I decided, to make a long story short, decided I'm going to come up with a different name for my channel. And I thought about things I like. I liked astronomy, I like science, I like the sky. I like looking at the sky, whether it's at night, during the day. I've always been intrigued by the sky, whether it's the planets, the weather, the stars, physics, the universe. And I came up with suddenly Sky of the Universe. And that kind of incorporates, my love for astronomy, my love of science, my love of the sky, all into one name, Sky of the Universe. And I thought as well, it's not just that Sky of the Universe represents, my love of astronomy and whatnot in the sky. It represents what my channel is. It's a universe of many different themes. And when you think of the sky and you think of the universe, they're both technically infinite. They go on forever, technically. So when you think of sky of the universe, that's two infinite concepts combined into one. So that's how I came up with the name Sky of the Universe. And again, it incorporates my channel, that my channel is a universe of different themes, endless possibilities, and there's not one specific thing I stick to until this, and up until this day. That's why I've kept the name Sky of the Universe for my channel, and I think it fits perfectly. And I'm always trying to expand my channel. I'm always trying to get new ideas for my channel. A lot of channels out there, they stick to one topic, which is great. That's they're experts on one thing, and they make specific content for a specific audience, and they have a very strong following in certain groups. And for me, it's sort of, like I said, across the spectrum. So across, I guess you can say, the universe of possibilities. I have transit videos, I have emergency response videos, which is also the fire buff community, which films fire apparatus, fire trucks, fire vehicle responses. I also just recently started getting into ceiling fan videos. Not recently, but maybe within the last couple of years. I've also, of course, always been into nature walks. There's also, of course, regular urban walking I do, walking around different neighborhoods. So there's all these themes, of course. And then you have the elevators, the escalators. And, the fun thing about my channel is there's so many members or, viewers from all those different communities that come together into my comment section and whatnot. And it's always fun doing different videos for, this community, that community. Now, I will say that the transit community, public transit videos are probably the main pillar of my channel. That's probably for different reasons. That's probably because of the fact that transit is so easy to film transit videos. You just go into the metro, hop on a bus, turn on your camera, you can start recording, look out the window, record, the ride. You can go into a metro station and, just start filming metros going by, whether it's the MR73 trains, which are our oldest rolling stock we have right now in the metro, or whether it's the Zur trains. You can go outside, film buses, whether it's the older buses, the newer ones. So that's probably why transit is very easy to film, and there's a very good community out there of transit fans, which is very encouraging. It's no secret, I am if you've watched my channel, I've mentioned a few times, I'm very pro-environment. I'm very pro-public transit. I do admit I am anti-car. I do admit that I think people are too addicted to their cars. I think people that are, really need a vehicle to get around, if you're handicapped or, have a disability where you just can't get around, you should be able to use a vehicle. But I think too many people are just dependent or addicted to their cars. And it's good to see that, younger people like me are starting to embrace more the concept of, public transit and whatnot. And I've heard people tell me, how are you going to have a family one day and not have a car? How are you going to have kids and not have a vehicle? Well, look, I grew up never having a vehicle. I grew up taking public transit everywhere. I grew up getting around by public transit. And if, I really needed to go somewhere where public transit wasn't accessible, I would find another way to get there. I'd have somebody give me a lift or take a taxi or whatnot. But everything, especially if you're living in the city and you're able-bodied, you're able to use public transit. That being said, public transit needs to be seriously more funded. And this is, an example of what we could talk about on the podcast, different, future episodes. But my point right now is that it's good to see a lot of younger people and people in general embracing public transit more. And I encourage you, if you're a younger person, whether you're like me in your 30s or in your 20s, teens, older, younger, whatever, embrace public transit. You don't need to always think about getting a license and getting a car, blah, blah, blah. You just be proud of taking the bus and the metro and be an advocate for that. Use a bicycle, And I see a lot of young people out there just using public transit more and more. I see a lot of families getting around by bicycle and bus and metro, and it's always nice to see. And then, of course, then there's the other communities you have on my channel. You have, like I was mentioning, the fire buff community. Of course, we have people like Quebec Buff, Relo Buff, Montreal Interesting Things. These are all their YouTube handles, YouTube names. They film emergency responses from fire stations, fire halls. They're always keeping me updated on the latest, fire vehicles that are about to come out. Apparently Montreal's supposed to get some new fire engines soon, some ladders and more. So that's another community that I like to embrace. Then you have the ceiling fan community. We have people like Brandon and Carter. People ask, what's so exciting about ceiling fans? Well, you know what? You have to like ceiling fans to understand why people like ceiling fans in a community. Just like any other community. Why do people like escalators? Why do people like elevators? Why do people like buses? Why do people like this and that? It's something that, certain people really like. It's, you can go into detail why they like them. It's the design. It's the engineering of it. It's how it works. The mechanisms. And that's the thing. There's a community for everything out there. And of course, there's also technically part of the transit community is the rail fanning community. We have some very great opportunities here in Montreal and the surrounding area to film trains, whether it's freight trains, commuter trains. That's another very cool community. So you name it. If you've followed my channel for a while, you'll know that certain videos attract certain individuals for commenting, others attract others. A lot of my videos attract a mix of different communities. So that's the beauty about YouTube. That's the beauty about my channel. It's just very diverse, and I think diversity is the main word to describe my channel. And of course, as I mentioned, the transit community, it's probably the biggest part of my channel. We have, as I may have mentioned, Skinfleck, who's working on a Montreal Metro game. There's another individual, his name is Khan. He's also working on a Metro game. So it's really cool to see within communities, even like games and creations, artwork. And it's really nice to see the different things out there, whether it's games or art or photography. And then, of course, we can't forget there's the music community out there. People like Jack Casey, aka A Bass Guy. He's an independent musician. He does a show every week. He's been doing it for many years, over a decade, from his own basement studio. Does amazing shows, puts it all together, takes hundreds of hours a week just to put the show together. And on top of that, has to go grocery shopping. He's had his apartment flood. He has spinal damage, and he's out there producing weekly show that is beyond incredible. So he's a good friend of the channel as well. So there's all these great people as well that I've met over the years, that I've become friends with because of the different communities and different channels out there, whether it's fellow YouTubers, viewers. And the beautiful thing is too, I mentioned this, whether it's the transit community or any community, they're so diverse. There's so many age groups. There's so many, people from different ethnicities. And I've said this before, I'm proud to have friends of all ages, all ethnicities. And I'm proud to, bring a little bit of entertainment and education into, I guess, people's lives. And that's what my channel is all about, is documenting and showing the world through my eyes. So, with all this being said, hopefully, you do like this idea that I have. I admit I'm not the greatest speaker. I don't like things to be about me. I don't really like the camera being on me. Just like some other folks out there, they like to be looking outwards. But I do want to make this podcast into something really special. And as I mentioned, if you want to be a guest, to be interviewed eventually, or It can be just an audio interview. Let me know. And that's the beauty too about these podcasts is I could record a chunk of podcasts now, then do some more later. I can record part of an episode here, part of an episode there, and splice it all together into one episode, at a later time, if I really want to. So I can work on an episode, over multiple days, and put it together. This one here is all being done at once, here this evening. And the beautiful thing is I'm using the Android or Samsung audio recorder, and if I make a mistake, I just have to go and scroll the little, I guess you could say, the bar here, scroll it backwards and re-record where I messed up. So technology is great, isn't it? Not always, but anyways, we can get into that another time. But anyways, hopefully I've set sort of the stage about what this is about. If you have ideas for the podcast, if you have ideas about what there is to discuss, if you have questions, if you have, maybe eventually I'll do special episodes where you can maybe call in somehow, sort of like a radio show or something, and have live viewers calling in. I don't know, but I want to keep it primitive for now. I want to keep it audio only for now, and I want to make this something, like I said, that you can just sit back and enjoy. And Skinfleck mentioned this to me. He said he wants something, and it wasn't just him, there's a few others. They want something where they can be doing things in the background, and they don't have to be looking at their screen while they're doing things. Usually my videos, you have to be sitting down, or, you could be doing other things too while you watch them, but he wants something specific, and others want something specific where they don't have to look at the screen. They can just be, working on a transit game, doing homework, writing a book, whatever, writing music, whatever it may be, and just listening to a podcast. So I think this is a great idea. And by the way, I mentioned earlier that this is something I thought about for the last year, half a year, but others have mentioned this idea as well to me over the years. So let's see how this turns out, guys. And again, we'll see different, we'll have different themes maybe at one point. We'll have guests, interactive podcasts maybe I'll do live versions of the podcast. That would probably be an idea as well, but for now we'll stick to the audio only recordings with, like I said, a couple of background images just to make it more interesting. But so again, thank you everybody for the recent congratulatory messages for reaching 10,000 subscribers. Thank you for the comments. I am working on your requests, your video requests. I am working on other things in the background. I'm not going to hide it. It's not a secret. I've mentioned it before. I have had over the last year and a half or a couple of years, sort of it's a dark period, mainly because of a breakup I've had with an ex-girlfriend that I was with for about 7 years. When you're with somebody for that long and they just suddenly cut contact off with you, like most relationships, when they break, when they end, you lose contact with the person. They don't even want to be a friend, which I think sucks, but it is what it is. But when something like that happens, it really hurts, and especially if it's the longest relationship you've been in. I am hopeful. I know I will find my true love, but we're not going to get into emotional stuff right now or that sort of thing. That's just stuff that's happening on the side. Like I said, I don't want this to be about me. It's just a little bit of background information to keep in mind. Sometimes I do have, easier days, sometimes harder days, but, they say time heals everything, and eventually I will find who I need and what I need. But, that's the thing about this channel. It does sort of act as sort of a distraction, keeps me occupied, keeps my mind busy. But I will find who I need and what I need eventually. So anyways, let me know. Leave comments, leave questions, leave suggestions. Again, if you're interested in eventually being interviewed or want to have a discussion on the podcast, leave a comment. Or if you want to anonymously leave me an email, it's skyoftheuniverse 8608@gmail.com, and I will reply. So thanks for listening, everybody. This has been episode 1 of A Sky of the Universe podcast. Until next time, see you all and good luck.